Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'd love to start off if you could let me know a little about your educational background and currently where your career within economics has taken you.
So my name is Garance Genicot, and so I'm professor at Georgetown University in the Department of Economics. And I'm from Belgium, and so I did my undergraduate in Belgium at the University of Liège, and then did the Ph.D. in economics at Cornell University. And after that, I went to work a few years at the University of California at Irvine, and I moved to Georgetown, where I've been for most of my career.
Amazing. Is there anything you've noticed with maybe even UC Irvine or Georgetown's economics curriculum that is unique compared to other universities?
The two universities are very, very different. University of California at Irvine had a very different population of students from Georgetown University. Probably a much more first generation students going to UC Irvine, being a public university. Uh, more students, unfortunately, having to work part-time, so sometimes struggling a little bit between working and taking classes. While Georgetown students, I think, tend to be of a bit of a more, maybe more fortunate background, although, there's a huge diversity among our students. But so that's quite quite a difference. In terms of the programs, I think some of the characteristic of Georgetown may be due to its location, but being in Washington, D.C., I think there's quite a bit of emphasis on policy work, whether it is in development economics that I work on, whether it's more political economy related to being in DC and Capitol Hill, even in macroeconomics, the Fed. And so I think our students tend to be quite involved also in policy issues, policy work with internship, and being quite active.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I really like that you pointed out that like the differences in like students being more fortunate and having more opportunities to have more time to do their studies comparing to a part-time job. So that is something to consider as a student at both universities. Another question I have for you is what kind of got you into the field or your specific realm of economics?
Uh, Maybe I was not that decided when I did undergraduates. In Belgium, you have to choose an orientation. More in many European countries, you choose to study economics, or you choose to study medicine, or you choose law, or there's a bit more commitment that in the United States when you start college. And economics felt very broad, because it's still, we would take a little bit, a few law class, a few sociology class, it felt like it was leaving many doors open. And at the time, I thought I was, when I started undergrad, maybe I felt like I wanted to be a journalist or something like that. And I felt that studying economics was a very good background. By the time I finished undergrad, was thinking that maybe working for the OECD or working for an international organization would be good. And it was more my undergraduate advisor that suggested, oh, what about doing a PhD in economics as opposed to doing a master, that I was considering. And he suggested to look at the United States. So I thought, okay, let me apply and I'll decide, if the answer is no, then the decision is made for me. And so then I applied, I got in some places, then I thought, okay, let me go for 1 year and see, where
Yeah.
I like it. And then I liked it, and I got interested into development economics and the question of, poverty, and why some people are poor and some people are rich, why some countries are poor and some countries are rich. And those were the questions that I really wanted to investigate further. And then each time, one step by step, I thought, okay, let me work a little bit in academia, then I'll see if I like it. And before I know it, I've never left school. And
Yeah. Very cool. Yes. As I noticed, you're from Belgium, you said, is that correct?
yes.
Is there anything like huge differences between economics majors in Belgium versus the United States?
Uh, I think for better or worse, so the fact that you have to choose a little bit earlier, like you enter into an economic program, so everybody goes for the same class in the first year, with maybe one or two option of differences, and then you can, over the 4 years, you can select maybe more classes. But it means that some of the requirement or the math for econ background or everything is like applies to everybody, so that allows you to go maybe deeper into the topic. So of course it means that if you realize halfway through that you don't like it, then it means if you want to switch to engineer, then you have to restart. It's not impossible, but you have to restart. I think in the United States, there's a bit less commitment, with many students still thinking about what they want to do during their first year. I don't know. I think at some point you have to pick something and you choose something. When is the right time to decide on what you do? I don't know. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages, but it allows you to maybe end up with, I would say that you end up after 4 or 5 years of undergraduate in Belgium, maybe you end up more at a level that would be what you would get after a master in the United States. So if it's the right path for you, it may be good to get there earlier.
Very cool observation. I feel like I take that for granted as well. Like a lot of other professors I've spoken to is, don't come into college with just a mindset that I'm only gonna go with this major. Like be open-minded, be understanding of the different ways that your career may take you. Secondly, another question I have is, as a woman or a woman that's possibly thinking this industry, is there any differences you feel as a woman within the industry of economics, or does that seem not to be a prevalent issue?
Yeah, I am very surprised by the gender imbalance in economics, and by how little it has maybe improved over the last 10 years. I think among undergraduate major. So, there used to be among faculty member very low ratio of women compared to men. And now when you look at, among faculty members, it got much better in the sense that, okay, among a full professor woman like myself, maybe the ratio is still like more 12% than not, but you go to associate professor and then it's like 28%. You go to assistant professor, it's like 30%. So it feels like just a question that, the whole crowd moves out, and it seems like we are going to get. But then you're looking at like graduate student, undergrad, it's like 32, 35%. And it seems that the 35% has stayed there a little, you know, constant, and I'm not sure why. Like you look at biology and it's 60% women. And it's not clear to me that the, you know, math requirement or the, you know, heaviness, and I'm not saying women are not as good as men as in mathematics. I'm saying that there tend to be a gender bias somewhere along the, you know, maybe more in middle school where self-selection or the way we educate girls might discourage them to more mathematic field, but then that should show up in biology as well. And in biology has 60% women. So I'm not sure why. And my best guess is that many people think that economics is to study finance. And, you know, in high school, you would have many econ clubs that are more like finance and investing and stock option. And what I think it's really important is to understand that you don't need to be interested at all in stock markets. You can be, but you can be interested in many things, that you can use economics as an approach to study decision-making, allocation of scarce resources, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's to study whatever interests you, whether it's like question like the environment that are very pressing, question of identity, whether you're interested in question of development economics and poverty and inequality, whether you're interested in fertility and marriage markets, and like there's a lot of question, healthcare, design of policies that are very important, political system. And I think economics has a very useful approach to study many issues, not just the stock market.
Exactly. And I feel like it's super important to have the diversity within the field. I think just women might even ask like economics questions that range from men and so forth, and so be, you know, like different cultures, identities is super important and kind of lacking. So yeah, I've interviewed maybe 9 other professors, ranging from like Duke, USC, and then I did Tulane yesterday. And all of them have been men. Not that that's an issue, but you are the first woman, so congratulations. So I just wanted to ask that question. Another question I have for you, is like maybe your students with like a BA or 4 years, in economics, where are you seeing a lot of them, where their careers kind of headed or jobs they're taking?
Good question, because I don't always know. And typically the one that tell me where they go tend to be the one that need me for a recommendation letter at some point down the road.
Yes.
That typically happens when they want to apply for a master or they want to apply for like a PhD. So I may have a very biased view. I know that a bulk of our students end up in consulting, and there's a bunch of finance job, but I also know students who have gone and work for resources for the future, for NGOs, or some that have done master and then work for the World Bank. I know some students that a number of foreign students are more interested in development economics, and some have ended up very high up in ministerial position in their countries. That's a very good question. I don't have a global view of where students end up, but yes, a number of them have done PhD in economics, and those are the ones that I've been the most in touch because they have needed advice or letters along the way.
Amazing. Yeah, it seems like it's kind of going in a lot of directions, and there's a lot of diversity of where that PhD or degree can take you. Um, yeah, no problem. The last question I have for you is, as I am a high school student, is there any like resources of like maybe websites or books that you would recommend that would allow me to have a good knowledge of the field?
Yes, I think that what I would encourage is not like an overview of the field, but it's to think about, there's some very nice general interest books that have come up in recent years, written um, by economists. Everybody heard of economics. That might have been the first one of of those books that were could be read by anyone. I think one that I would encourage you to read would be Poor Economics by Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo, that received the Nobel Prize 2 years ago, I think. And are two development economists. And it's a book that could be read by anyone without any econ background, but would get you interested in question of poverty and question of development economics.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and I'll make sure to check all of those out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.